Hi everyone, welcome to this week's video. I'd like to thank you as always for tuning in. I really hope you're enjoying my page. If so, please hit subscribe to stay up to date with all the weekly content. If you've ever spoken to a fitness professional or watched any videos on exercises, you'll hear PTs or fitness professionals talking about form. But why is form so important? Well, there's a few reasons. The first one, and the most important in my opinion, is it limits your chance of injuries. I think the best way to describe this is to give you guys an example. Let's take an exercise that's very commonly done in the gym, the deadlift. Now the deadlift for me, the way I like to teach it, is it's an exercise that works the whole body. Well, how does it do that? So the movers of the exercise are the legs and the hips. So the front of the legs to straighten the knee, hamstrings and bum to extend the hip. Now the back muscles, the core muscles, the muscles around the shoulder all work to stabilize. They all work to resist movement of the spine and shoulders while we're moving the weight from A to B. With that in mind, the weight needs to be the correct load on the bar for the individual to hold the position of the back while moving the weight from A to B. So essentially you are not just focusing on moving weight from A to B, you're focusing on holding form against resistance. There's a big difference there, a really, really big difference there, and a massively important one. If you're just moving the weight from A to B, you're not thinking about how you're moving it, you're thinking about how much you're moving. If you're thinking of holding your form while moving against resistance, you're placing yourself in a really good position and, more importantly, a really safe position when you're lifting weights. Unfortunately, we do see so many who focus on the first, which is to move as much weight as possible. The truth is you can lift a lot of weight off the ground without thinking about it. You can go up to it, you can pick it up, you can move it from A to B. The problem is if you're not in the correct position, if you're putting too much load on the bar and you can't hold the correct position of your back, you guessed it, what's going to happen is your lower back is going to take a big amount of the load, and eventually over time it will cause it to create an injury. And this is no different for any other exercise you do. I choose the deadlift because it's a pretty popular exercise and it's a higher risk exercise. It's a big compound move. You're placing a lot of load through your back, and if you get it wrong, you're going to hurt yourself. I will in the future do some exercise tutorials on all the exercises, including the deadlift, so do look out for those ones. But in the meantime, guys, just make sure you're getting the right amount of weight on there for you and moving in the correct way to prevent the chances of you getting an injury. Lifting in bad form can also, away from injuries, can also create stiffnesses and little niggles, stuff like tendonitis and stiff joints. Again, it goes back to the same thing as I was talking about a second ago, which was if you lift too much weight, the likeliness is another thing that's going to deteriorate is range of movement. Okay, so in order to be able to move the weight from A to B, again, we're going to the mindset of A to B movement again. Sometimes, let's take a bench press for an example, sometimes we put too much weight on the bar and the range of movement gets shorter. Okay, now that is a false economy. Okay, you're creating stiffnesses. You may as well, you'll do much better, you'll get much more gains out of it if you drop the weight and go through as much movement as your body your body allows you to do. Okay, so another thing that is important when considering this is, like everything, like your muscles, your tendons, they all have a certain amount of tolerance to load, okay? And a certain amount of tolerance to training. Now, if you're new or fairly new, even if you're not, but more so if you are, and you go in and you start lifting weights that are too heavy for you, or you do sessions that are just too difficult for you, your form will deteriorate, but also your muscles can't take that and your tendons can't take that sort of load yet. So what happens is, once again, we get these stiffnesses, we get these niggles. And although it's not necessarily as bad as, I don't know, a torn muscle or a disc bulge in your back that means you can't move, these little niggles are really irritating. That's why they're called niggles. They're niggly, they're annoying, and they stop you from working out. Weight training gets a bad rap quite often when this happens, okay? Or when I started weight training, I got injured. Well, actually, what's likely that's happened is you've gone in unprepared. you've lifted too much weight, you've worked out too hard, or you've done too tough a session, and all of a sudden you're injured. Well, it's not weight training that's injured you, it's the way you've done weight training. So get those things right first, pick the correct load, go through the correct ranges of movement, and build yourself up slowly. Give your body a chance to adapt, and then you can start pushing after a few weeks. But it's another important reason why lifting weight in the right form is so important, because if you're not lifting weight in the right form, these niggles and injuries might happen, which will, guess what, stop you from training. You'll lose motivation, you won't want to train anymore, and the results you came to get, you won't achieve. This leads me on to our third reason. If you're continually getting niggles, like I said, you will likely stop training, and that's the last thing we want to do. Okay, I've talked about this in previous posts and in the podcast various times, how important it is to make exercise a part of your ongoing life. We don't want a 12-week hit and then disappear. We want it to go on and on and on and be part of our life. Weight training, we talked about in the past, if your muscle is retained through your whole life, you limit your chance of being less able in old age. Okay, I have clients who are 80, 90 years old who have been active their whole lives, and they're still active now because of what they put in through their lives. They didn't do it in the weights room, they did it outdoors, being active, picking things up, going for walks, carrying things. Whereas we can do it in the weights room now, so we can get people in, we can train, and we can train throughout our whole lives. And if these niggles are happening, you're not going to be able to do that. So again, I'm talking about long-term health here, which again is what we all want, right? We want to be healthy for as long as possible. The way we can help ourselves, the way I can help people, is to get them as strong as they can for their whole lives. And you can do that yourselves. Get yourselves nice and strong, keep up the resistance training as part of a balanced workout, a weekly workout, including cardio and various other things that you enjoy. But if you're getting niggles, if you're lifting in the wrong technique, if you're lifting the wrong form, you're going to get these niggles. It's going to stop you from training. You'll lose motivation for it. You'll have a bad association with it, so you won't do it. So everything that I've talked about just then just won't happen. Okay, you'll be less likely to continue resistance training later in life, which for me is really, really important. And what's the one consistent thing that we've talked about today? Excessive load. Okay, so if we're going into a gym and we're putting too much weight on the bar, that's going to be the main thing that deteriorates our form, which leads to all these little things over time. It won't happen straight away, but over time it will definitely happen. So do a little bit of research, pick the correct weight, move in the correct way, and you will be able to train all your life using the weights room. That's it from me. Thank you once again for tuning in. I really hope you've been enjoying these videos. Like I said, please hit the subscribe button if you had, and I'll see you guys next week.